Hello and welcome to the Battling Barrow and another D&D Mystara campaign waffle session. Yep, this is where I waffle on, normally out of order, about my recent campaign that I run for my players. And yeah, it's a Mystara campaign because that was my first setting. I wanted to revisit it, and it's been getting on to a couple of years now. We are currently in the Isle of Dread. We've gone north beyond the wall, and I feel this session was where we really got to the Isle of Dread proper. We were running the Isle of Dread proper. Beforehand, it's sort of doing the outskirts of the island, meeting some natives, and then leaving the safety of the wall last session, and we're well beyond that now. So yeah, let's begin the waffle session. We begin this session exactly where we left off last one, just at the end of the tar pit. Their guide, Miku, guides them around the other side of the tar pit, and they begin working their way back the way they come, but on the opposite side of the tar pit. The tar pit is several miles long, and so he is going across that way. And then soon they begin to head north east. Now it's here that I rolled a random encounter. In Isle of Dread you roll one in the morning and one at night, and we got one here, but there is a planned encounter in the next hex. So I rolled to see what the random encounter is, and it's a saber-tooth band. Saber-tooth tiger. Now I know the next hex is going to be the Rakasta camp, so I kind of rolled it all into one to build up to it. So I had my players see that there is some saber-tooths and look like some people on them, riding them up in the distance, and they're far enough away that they're not going to cause the party any trouble, but they're just keeping an eye on them. So that was it. It was just an encounter that sets up the main encounter, which is the Rakasta camp. Now here, originally the Nearfalls player had some in his other campaign world. He had created some Tabaxi player characters, so I was going to roll them in, use them as Rakastas, and use those at this stage. But because he can't join us recently due to unfortunate life events, I didn't feel right about using them, so I had to come up with another character. And this is where I was a bit unprepared, because in my mind I was going to be using those other character names and what have you, and suddenly I needed a name, so I came up with Leonardo de Castro. Yes, not the best, but definitely good. Anyway, they're welcoming, and they explain to the party that they come from the west, from an area known, perhaps the players would know as the Savage Coast. They say that there is a curse over there, and the Red Curse, and they are looking for a means to protect themselves against it. There is a mineral called Cinnabril that they can use to make amulets that can protect people over there, but they want a more permanent solution to make sure it doesn't hit their land of Belaine. Because at the moment it's just sort of centred around the Savage Baronies themselves, but it could spread to their homeland, and that's what I don't want to happen. And so what this effectively sets up is, if my players set west, I'm sort of foreshadowing the Red Steel type of campaign. But anyway, they're here to look for an ancient Rakasta artifact that maybe help them against the curse. It is in a lost Rakasta temple. They know there are stone circles that sort of, when you've found enough of these stone circle monoliths, they sort of point the way. There's a sort of a map script that points the way to where the temple is. They sort of triangulate the location. They ask the players for help, and they say, and during this time, at the back, there are 4 saber-tooth tigers and what look to be like 3 saber-tooth tiger riders, with one being missing. These are the ones that we had in the random encounter. Walker is eyeballing the saber-tooth. His mind's ticking, thinking, I'm a ranger. I don't have an animal companion anymore, apart from the serpent, who is collecting pearls, which, just to skip ahead very quickly, we're having it so we can only have one companion at a time. So if he gets another animal companion, it's like the psychic link, if you like, is broken from the other animal. So Leonardo sort of sees him looking and goes and sort of says that the rider was killed when they were searching the southern part of the island for the temple, and so the Sabertooth is looking for a new rider owner and offers the Sabertooth up as, you know, a reward for helping him out. He says he can have him now, payment up front to help the temple. The Rakasta will search the northwest of the island, the players will search the northeast of the islands. It's all agreed. We go through we have sort of animal handling checks and what have you, so it's not just an instant, here's an animal companion, it's how we've always done it. So, but then, yeah, we end up with a saber-toothed tiger that is mountable as well, so that is rather good. And afterwards, with the information at hand, we now have another quest, as it were. I'm loath to use side quests, that's a very CRPG term, but it's more just extra things to do, extra adventures to go on this Isle of Dread. There's not really one central narrative. I'm sort of creating one about the closing the water elemental gates, stop the old ones coming through, but as a whole, it's just the adventure is what the players make of it. So yeah, they're now helping Rakasta. We continue northeast. Now, Miku the guide is using all the landmarks to navigate the Isle of Dread. So the tar pit, and the next one is a lake. So he's aiming to hit that lake. And the shores of this lake are quite swampy. Now, here is where I sort of mix things up. Because in my mind, my players are only going to go to the northeast to do the Rakasta thing, then go to the central plateau to do what they think is the main quest thing. But I wanted to run the Drunken Ankylosaurus encounter, which is northwest, and I'm thinking they're never going to hit it. So I do a bit of jiggery-pokery here and there while I'm sort of mixing key locations up. The locations are still roughly in the same hex, but I'm just mixing them up. So in the Goodman games, this is a different encounter, and so I just bring the Drunken Ankylosaurus into this. As you will see by the end of this episode, I probably wouldn't need to have bothered doing this, but ho-hum, foreshadowing. So yes, we hit the riverbank, the river edge, and it is here in a swampy part of the land, and there's a mist rolling over it. That out of the sort of shrubbery charges this Ankylosaurus. Now the players have Pratis's book, and they quickly look through to see what this is, and it's an Ankylosaurus. Now it mentions that normally these things are herbivores and docile, whereas this thing seems somewhat aggressive, almost like it's drunk. They do a quick nature check as they can see some weed coming out of it, and they recognise it as some sort of narcotic-based poco weed, it's called. It's obviously fermented somewhat, and it's eaten it, and it's now basically drunk. Now the encounter is it's going to be drunk for 2 hours, and so being aggressive, it's going to keep charging them in that belligerent, "What are you looking at, mate?" I don't know if Ankylosauruses do that, and I don't know if you have that in your country, but you know, some nights in England can be a bit sketchy for drunken louts, and so that's what this is. Their plan, rather good, I feel. It's to get Draco to fly around, get the Ankylosaurus's attention, and to fly around and sort of lead it off ever so slightly, just far enough so they can keep it in eye shot, so and make sure, and just see if they can wear it out. They don't want to kill it. It's obviously not normal behaviour, and so that is what they do. And I'm asking them, so are you keeping your eyes on this Ankylosaurus? Which I guess my players are thinking, he's going to DMs here, making sure that it's not just going to suddenly turn around and charge us. And like, yes, we're watching the Ankylosaurus at all times. Now, if you know this encounter, you know. Now, normally there is a cache of hidden treasure here, but you need the map from the Rock's Nest to be able to find it. And while you dig in, it's also a Allosaurus hunting ground. And That's what happens as the players are watching intently the Ankylosaurus. They're not watching from behind. And then Allosaurus also attacks. And it's attacking the players. It wants a bit of human meat. And so, whilst Draco is leading the Ankylosaurus on a dance, the players are contending with fighting off an Allosaurus. Now, these things aren't too bad. They're only 25 points of XP. And so it's easy enough to defeat, but I'm setting this up for maybe there's a herd of Allosauruses in the future. They then just avoid the Ankylosaurus, who after 2 hours the effects of the weed wears off, and he then has a massive hangover, stumbles off sort of almost apologetically, and throws up in a bush, and then collapses in a very hungover pile, a hungover way. And they move on. They get to a cave area. They're moving on. It's the last hex of the day, and they settle down for the night. And during the watch, there is a random encounter, and it just so happens again to fall into place. Just to the west, if they go a few hexes to the west, there is the Neanderthal encounter. Now, we don't do that, but the random encounter for the night is a bunch of Neanderthals, and so I have them that they're returning to their caves at night with the spoils of a hunt. They are aware of the party there, because I mentioned that the party do set a fire so they can see that. So they're basically, the party can spot them, they spot the party, and they're just keeping a respectful distance. I use, even though this is 5e, I have incorporated, I think I've mentioned this loads of times before, monster reaction charts and monster morale from BECME. And so I'm rolling on that, and that dictates pretty much how these encounters go, how they start. And so, yeah, the Neanderthals are just really not interested in the party at this time. And so, unless the party acts, which they don't, they just let it all slide, they go about their business. So we have that's the encounter. We go up into the hills and then back down, and we're still skirting the end part of the lake, and the ground gets a bit more swampy now. And as they get to here, they hear an ear-piercing scream, and they rush forward and see a native, looks like one of Miku's tribal people, being chomped on by a finned lizard. They've checked their notes, and it is a Dimetrodon. There is a Walker tries to shoot it, rolls a 1, and so gets a critical fumble. The fumble is the opponent gets a free attack. Now, to work this out is, I know there's a bit of confusion here, because they get to go first in the initiative and the Dimetrodon goes last, but due to this they sort of managed to get a surprise on it, but then the surprise is fumbles, and so it's all rather complex. But the end result is, even if they manage to kill the Dimetrodon before it reaches them, due to that fumble, that one attack, it almost has a death throw attack. And that is exactly what happens. Now, to get through to the players, they're like, well, we're going first, we can kill it before the results is fumble. But it's not, because that fumble has to take effect. It's what comes first, it's what takes precedence. So what happens is, as expected, the Dimetrodon charges them. They go first. Between their arrows and their magic, they bring it down. Because it's only a Dimetrodon, it's not that tough, but as it falls down on the floor, it lands at Walker's feet. He's the one that has to take the results of the fumble, and they think it's dead. He goes to sort of kick it with his foot, and it's then when it sort of one last death throw chomps on his foot and does the damage that is required. Brilliant, got there, it worked out. They rush to the native, who is mortally wounded. There is no saving him, and just before he dies, he offers them some treasure if they take his remains until, and this is random, roll on the random chart, the forest in the northwest, I think it is, northwest, northeast, in the northern part of the central plateau, where he has family. He is a native. There is natives that live up in the central plateau as well, a different tribe. He is half of that tribe and half of Miku's tribe. So that is where they agree the players. And I'm thinking, great, this will be a little stumper. I'm imagining them making some sort of draggy thing to drag the body. I'm like, brilliant. Okay, this will make the players think, slow them down a bit maybe. And then they say, we can just have Draco carry, carry the dead body. And I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. Well, that's where I thought they were going anyway. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's inspired. So they were going to get some inspiration dice for this. But then Galfenwith announces, yeah, let's get Draco to cremate the body and make the remains easier to carry. That blew me away, but hey, they're still getting inspiration for that. It's a great idea, really. He didn't say you couldn't be cremated, just his remains. They're still remains. So that is what they do. Another random encounter as we carry on into the hills, and it's another saber-tooth tiger. So with this one, these aren't Rakasta, these are wild saber-tooths. This is where the Rakasta probably get their saber-tooths. They come to the Isle of Dread to get their mounts. And so I just have them flanking. Again, reaction chart says these things are not really that interested in them as long as the players don't do anything. And I don't know if Walker's new saber-tooth tiger is talking to them. They seem to just follow him for a few miles and then go off looking for some other prey. Soon the terrain becomes jungly again as they leave the hills and enter the lowlands, and they begin working their way through. As they're hacking their way through the undergrowth, up ahead they notice a stone circle. Is this one of the stone circles the Rakasta were talking about? It is indeed. There are 8 stones, great monoliths in a circle, and in the centre one is sort of a more obelisk based circle, sort of at a weird angle. It's not pointing straight up. There is writing upon it, ancient Rakasta writing. So Galfenwith instantly casts comprehend languages, manages to read it, and it talks about a stone circle and how this points towards other monoliths, that once you find enough of them you can use the angle of the stone point that it's pointing to triangulate to where the temple is, and other bits of information about Rakasta's history, things like that. So that's great. This one appears to be pointing north, so they decide that is where they head. Once they finished reading up about the information, now you get to roll a random encounter here. It's got its own random encounter table, and I roll a stone giant. Now the encounter says the stone giant is called Garkle, and he's a friendly stone giant, and he comes through the forest, and he's just on a walk with his pet rock that he carries. The only stone giant I had was from the Dragon Strike set, so it's quite a small stone giant. So I guess he is a dwarven stone giant, I guess, maybe? I don't know. Okay, so one of the things you do with Garkle, once you start conversing with him, roleplay out a bit, you get to get 3 rumours on the rumour table. My players actually end up getting 4, so I roll, some of them make sense. It's just things like there's ships have been shipwrecked on the coral beds, and there's ships probably full of treasure. But one is effectively a fake rumour, and it's all about gems in a mountain towards the north. And now he's a stone giant, and that's his homeland. He would know this is fake, so I sort of say, no, that's fake. Actually, let him know a bit out of character on my part, but let him know it's fake. But anyway, so they get a fourth roll. Now this fourth roll throws a bit of a spanner in the works of the party, because he says it's about a temple. Information about a temple that is in the northwest part of the map. Now they think this is the temple they're looking for, so they then decide that is where they're heading next. Of course I know it's not. This is a separate temple, but a rumour to help players find this other temple, which is a new encounter in the Goodman Games version. So I'm like, so what this means is they are going to head straight west, and that will take him straight to the original location of the Drunken Ankylosaurus encounter. So I didn't need to swap it, so they're going to encounter it next week, but I'll just swap it with what was going to be there on their one. that I swapped it for, kind of thing. Little jiggery pokery of the encounters, the encounters still being matched. So, but that is where we're going to leave it this week. Now, I really enjoyed this one. I feel we're getting into the stride of Isle of Dread. I'm finding my feet with hex crawls. It's the first ever one I have ever run, even though this is the first module I ever owned back in the 80s. I never run it, so I always did more dungeon crawls and then just abstracted above ground travel away. So yeah, I'm finding my feet, we're finding our feet, we're having fun. Let's see what next session brings. Thank you for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoyed this waffle session. Yeah, until the next one, guys, stay safe, take care, bye bye.